Okay, our next section deals with Poseidon and Zeus, well, the statue that is Poseidon or Zeus. So now we're into the Greek culture. It focuses on the living, unlike Egyptian, which focuses on the afterlife. And they celebrate human individuality and activity. They had the democratic system, again, believed in humanity, and they had the pantheon of gods. Pantheon means all, so more than one. And intellectualism. They loved theater, philosophy, athleticism, and beauty. And human form in their art is emphasized as being highly dynamic, that they move. And this is why they like to show the musculature, that this person is capable of movement. And of course, it evolves. It begins with a geometric and orientalizing, that's 900 to 600 BCE. Then archaic, 600 to 480 BCE. Then you have early and high classical, late classical, and it ends with Hellenistic. So the Greeks aspired to higher or to greater naturalism, balance, and perfection. They have advances in figurative sculpture, and this allows the Greeks to depict new poses and figural forms, and again, it's contributing to the quality of art, making it more humanist, more realist. Egyptian figurative sculpture precursors. There is a connection between Egyptian and Greek art and their figurative sculpture. Egyptian tombs do have three-dimensional sculpture elements, such as the Ka statues, and they're carved of hard stone or diorite in order to last eternity. Remember, if the body didn't make it through mummification, the statue would last. The Ka form is very conservative, and you'll have one of two forms, either standing or seated. They may wear the beard and linen headdress as well as the kilt. And if they're seated, it's on a chair with some symbolic elements, perhaps a lotus or papyrus blossoms. There have the falcon god Horus may be present, and inscriptions will identify him. Pharaoh is always in a rigid frontal view, the limbs held close to the body, and in the statues, what we're talking about. And there's a web of stone to connect the figure to the block to ensure against breakage. Remember, there's a desire for durability at expense of accuracy. They need the Ka statues to last in case the mummy doesn't. Pharaoh is often seen stepping forward to suggest motion, but there's no movement in the hips. So this is actually an error in sculpture, because what that means then is you actually have one leg longer than the other. Greek innovations. Many Greek sculptures we know are actually Roman copies in marble of Greek bronzes. Greeks preferred bronze casting, and less than 30 original Greek bronzes remain. Most were lost or melted. And this was in the early Christian and Byzantine era. The Greeks were pagan, so their statues were not valued. They were popular in their own day, and they were copied by the Romans, who made less expensive statues out of marble. The ones that we have now were found in the Mediterranean Sea, and they were lost in shipwrecks. And they have been discovered from 1940s onward. Before the 19th century, none of the Greek bronze statues were known to modern era, and so now our knowledge of the Greeks advanced because of this new discovery. They had bronze, which is an alloy of copper and tin. Copper and tin. Bronze has a lower melting point, and it is harder than copper. The recipe is 11 units of copper to 1 of tin. The Bronze Age went from 2000 BCE, and they were the first to use weapons and tools. They hammered them first into desired shapes, and then there was advances in metallurgy. They used bronze for vases, bowls, jewelry, mirrors, tripods, and sculptures, of course. The first bronze sculptures were made on Crete. They would have small, simple mold of clay, and they used what was called a lost wax technique. So direct and indirect form is a combination to achieve visual effects. Lost wax, it should be wax, begins with a basic form in clay, and then a thin layer of beeswax is applied over the core and worked into detail. wax rods or sprues and or vents are stuck into the surface with metal pins, and a funnel is covered with clay outer casting, the investment mold. So you have the sculpture, then it's covered in wax, and then you're going to put something over it. But you still have these vents that go to where the wax is. And then what they do is they will fire the object upside down. All the wax melts, and then this leaves a gap in between the structure and the mold. And then the wax, of course, runs out of the form because you have the funnels and vents. The vents also help the gases to escape. And these pinholes keep the object stable. Bronze is then poured in a funnel into it, and it takes the place of the wax. The object cools, the investment mold is broken off, and the resulting sculpture is hollow yet very strong. In indirect, sculpture is modeled, again, clay, wax, wood, or stone, and a clay master mold made is cut off. And the mold, again, lined with beeswax, and a core of liquid clay is poured into it and dries. The master mold is removed and then is reworked or refined. And you can go up here to this little YouTube clip to get more information on the lost wax technique. Bronze allows Bronze allows for more naturalism, and it can be highly polished, and it can make the body look oiled and tan. Details are added. They will inlay eyes in stone or glass or crystal. Teeth could be of silver, marble, or ivory. The lips are highlighted with copper, and even the eyelashes can be of fringed bronze. So these are things that they can do after. Sometimes they'll have the hair cast separately, and they could start to create more complex stances. The earliest were the Greek male youths, and they were nude forms to serve as grave markers. It's like a Ka statue. The arms were to one side when you had one step forward, and the hips still not tilted. And it was called a kouros, K-O-U-R-O-S, meaning youth. But then they begin to evolve, and proportions become more accurate and muscles defined. And then, of course, we have the contrapposto in the Kritios boy. This is an innovation, and it reaches its peak in the Hellenistic period. This is the last Greek period, with the statues of Laocoon and his sons by, fun names, Anathodoros, Hegesandros, and Polydorus of Rhodes. So in just a few hundred years, art evolves incredibly. Here's the Christos boy. So you see, leg is forward, but the hips not tilted yet. And then you take a look at Laocoon group. Notice how dynamic the characters are, how they're changed. And then you see the movement and activity. And that's what the Greeks were able to do so well. So now let's talk about the Poseidon or Zeus statue. It's over life size. Its early classical sculptors unknown could be Annatus or Calamus or Myron. And again, the subject, well, we're not sure. Could be Poseidon or it could be Zeus. It held an object in its hand. That object is missing. And it could have created for a sanctuary or a votive offering. It was found in 1926 in the Mediterranean off of Cape Artemision. The statue is 6 feet 10 inches tall. It's taller than your principal. It's hollow cast, strong triangular base, and you'll see it has an inverted triangle of upper body, and looks to his left. And you'll see the beard pointing in the direction of his view, with the left arm extended and the right arm on the same horizontal. Okay. The arm turned up is the one holding a missing weapon. The muscles are flexing, poised, and beginning to turn. They're ready for action. You can even see veins in the hands and feet. The weight is on the left heel, And the toes on the right are balancing him. So let's take a look again. So weight is on the left. And you see the toes are used for balance. The body is not rigid, it's realistic, and it's best viewed from the front, although the back is as detailed as the front. The hair is in 2 braids, which is wrapped around the head and knotted on the forehead. That would be very common for that particular time. And he also had bangs. So again, you see the braid coming up here will be knotted up here. And again, just as detailed from the back. This is a typical male hairstyle in Greece in the first half of the 5th century. Long straight nose, eyebrows would have been of silver. The eyes are empty, but they would have had glass in them, and the lips were made of copper. And the hair contrasts with the smooth body. If you look at the hair, you can see the waves and things in it. The lost wax form allowed for a position that's impossible in stone. And the arm span is an even greater distance than the height, and it would have been even longer with the weapon. And the mastery here is that it's balanced on 3 prongs which are set in the feet, which again is showing mastery of technique. The body would have been cast in sections and then soldered together, and it's perfectly constructed. This is a true masterpiece of Greek technical and artistic ingenuity. Now I move on to the Pont du Gard at Nimes, France. Early construction techniques. This is part of an aqueduct, so yes, Pedro was right, and bridge made by the ancient Romans. The important part here is the development of the arch. The most common technique before the arch had been mounding, and you use dried mud bricks and post and lintel, 2 posts, and then you set something on top of the post. And the most famous post and lintel structure is Stonehenge and the hypostyle halls of Egyptian temples, which you'll find at Amun-Ra and at Karnak, which I think I have Karnak right here. So here we have post and lintel. Okay, so you can see these 2 posts and then see the breaks there resting on the 2. Post and lintel has its limits. It relies on the strength of the walls. It can't have large windows, and a wooden beam can only be as large, again, as the tree that produces it. Stone and wood would sag under their own weight, so the distance between the posts is very small. Corbelling. This is when stones are built up with each row projecting slightly inward, and it's going to make a crude pointed arch. You can have corbel domes with rings of stones for a rough dome. Again, you have some flexibility here. Yet again, it's going to rely on the mass. So this is corbelling right here, where each one projects out just a little. So it's not a smooth arch, and you can see right here, not a smooth arch at all. And again, this one is showing the difficulty here is that you can't have a great deal of space between the posts because they have to hold up the posts up here. So Roman development of the arch. They're known for imperialism. So their empire spreads quickly. One reason is that they incorporated the new cultures. They did not say you have to believe what we believe. It was brought in. So that's why they also have variations in art. They did little to advance visual art, but had great contributions to architecture. They brought new materials. They had new engineering techniques. So now we have the arch, the vault, and concrete. The arch they began to learn from the Etruscans or the Greeks, and the arch helped in creating large public areas. It's more stable, and the builders are no longer limited. So let's look at how to construct an arch. The stones are cut, into wedges. So you'll notice they will be larger at the top, smaller at the bottom, and they're going to transmit the thrust to the adjacent stones, which will continue all the way down to the vertical support. And the larger the curve, the stronger the arch. The final stone at the top of an arch is called a keystone, and it is supported by scaffolding until the keystone is placed. Once that keystone is in there, then all that compression keeps everything in place. So a series of arches will be a barrel vault, but 2 at 90 degrees is a groin vault. So this is going to be a barrel vault, looks like a barrel, just missing the bottom part. And this is a groin vault because it's have now the 4 entrances or exits. So Pont du Gard, it's at Nimes, ancient Nemesis, and it shows the breadth of the empire. They provided positive advantages to any people they conquered because they wanted people to like the Roman Empire. And this bridge brought clean water from Uzès, which is 31 miles away. 50,000 citizens in Nimes. Each citizen got 100 gallons of water a day. This was built under Emperor Agrippa, who was emperor for 20 to 16 BCE. The water was brought into channels, and the water fell 56 feet to fountains at Nimes. It crosses the gorge of the Garden River. This is the highest Roman aqueduct bridge, 3-story structure, 880 feet long, 160 feet high, and the large arches span 82 feet. The stone blocks weigh 2 tons each. They used no mortar or clamps, and the central arch spans the width of the stream. No abutment is placed in the river, and the bridge is anchored to the walls of the canyon. Now the arches transmit the thrust then to the walls of the canyon, so they're using the great force of the walls of the canyon itself. So you see only one arch here actually goes over the river, and nothing is in the river. So they planned this out very well. And we're going to end here.